เป็นมหาลัยโอ้ยมันเล็ก
And I'm amazed to see so many people here. I'd expected to meet maybe 10 at the most, so I'm shocked. This is not my first trip to Thailand. I came to Thailand the first time in 1980, and I have had the opportunity to work as a physical oceanographer with a Thai student who is now a PhD with me and a professor at Chulalongkorn University. And I've worked on a number of projects over the year. But I come to this maritime world as a physical oceanographer. And 3 years and a half ago, I was offered the position as president at the World Maritime University by the Secretary General of the International Maritime Organization after a career as a research scientist and academician in the United States. After 44 years away from Sweden, I returned to my native Sweden, and one of the first things that I saw was this spectacular bridge, which is Europe's longest bridge in Sweden tremendously, because we had a problem in 1979, because one of the world's largest shipbuilding factories, Kockums, then had to go out of business. And it went out of business because all the shipbuilding in the world from the late 1960s to the late 1970s moved to South Korea, to China, to Japan, and Indonesia as well. So all European shipbuilding suffered. And the suffering is actually why the World Maritime University came to be located in Sweden. Because it was hardship, and Sweden said, we want a UN institution, we want a university, and IMO, which at that time was producing many very complicated conventions. They say, we need our own university to interpret the maritime conventions. And then in 1983 it happened that the World Maritime University was founded. I can control my own destiny in the maritime area for the sake of global capacity building. That's what we're doing. Who pays for it? Well, the Swedish government says we will pay about 25% a year, and they have done so for 30 years. The rest of the money happens when I travel. When I travel, I see ministers, I see port authorities, I see people who are willing to send students to Sweden or give donations to the university. Fortunately, the Nippon Foundation in Japan thinks that we are doing a good job, and they support us with about 16% of our budget. And the city of Malmö are heroes. They provide us free of charge the building. They pay for the utilities and they pay for the maintenance of the building. Sweden, I report to the IMO, but we don't get much money from the IMO. In terms of academics, we are, as I said, very narrow in maritime affairs, but within maritime affairs we are very broad. We have 6 specializations in Malmö for the MSc program and for the PhD program. The most popular specialization is maritime safety and environmental administration, and this with about 40 MET, maritime education and training, with about 10. And the other ones are in between. 8 years ago, we started to teach an MSc program course in both Shanghai and in Dalian in China, intended specifically for the Chinese market. And we do so with the support of the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Transport and Communications in China. And we do about 100+ students in Malmö and about 35 students each on the 2 campuses in China. 2006, 1 student was just finishing. Today, 3 years later, we have finished 9 PhD students, and we have 11 new students studying. So we have grown the PhD program significantly, and it's very exciting. As I said, here are more away 1 day a year for a retreat to think and talk about the students. But this is just to show you that we are tiny as a university. However, in terms of the structure of our governance, how things are decided, it's very top-heavy. I have, for example, I report to a 11-person executive board. It's being chaired by the chairman of BIMCO, and there are people from, I have a Chinese director general, I have a minister, I have a lot of important persons in the maritime from across the world on my executive board. We meet 3 times a year. The executive board reports to the Board of Governors, which meets in Malmö once a year and is being chaired by Secretary General Sekinisu. He is also serving as the Chancellor of the university. And then, of course, the Board of Governors report to IMO Council, and the IMO Council reports to IMO Assembly, and all things really depends on the Secretary General, who is my boss, and to whom I report and whom I meet with. I go to London every month to talk to the people at IMO. Any institution needs a number of, not just a charter, rules and regulations, they need strategic vision, a way to move forward. And one of the things that's been very important to me is to create, with a full participation of the staff and the faculty of the university, a series of very forward-looking strategic documents. One of the questions we are asking now is, what does a library look like 5 years into the future? We are a UN university. We are extremely public. In fact, we are your university in Sweden because Thailand is an IMO member state. And therefore, I think that all these documents, they need to be in the public domain. And in fact, if you do go to our website, you can download them and look at them and critique them and so on. And of course, all the documents that are put there will be updated every 2 to 3 years. In terms of students, we're very happy that we have 106 MSc students in Malmö this year. We graduated 101, including 3 Thai students, I think, last year. And we have 2 of them sitting in the very front of the room. As you see, this year our students represent 39 different countries. And another thing, you know, Thai is a very difficult language, not for you, but for me. Is the ESSP program, that's English Study Skills Program. And it's really a 3-month-long program, which is before the MSc program, to bring those people who need it up to a very good level of English. And I think I've been told by the people who run the program that the students who do the ESSP do better academically than the other students in the regular program. And we're very proud of that one. And some of these SSP courses we teach away from Sweden as well, in Russia, in Oman and other places. As you see, the PhD program, we have 11 enrolled students this year. And then we have 73 students in Shanghai and Dalian. We are currently working a strategic plan. What kind of distance education should we offer? Academics for 44 years. And I have experienced many bad distance education programs. So we want to do the right one. So we have been arguing and talking about distance education. And sometime later this year, we will roll out some more options besides this distance learning course with Lloyd's Maritime Academy. And then we used to have an LLM program, but Lund shut it down because of changes in Swedish law. And we are looking for a new law partner. Up and down, we had a very bad time about 2007, 2008, which coincided with the global financial crisis. We had only 60 students for 1 year. We have rebuilt that. We are doing fine as a university. We are also doing very well with respect to women. Maritime is not a women heavy industry, although I'm seeing very many competent women in this room, and some of them are WMU graduates. But we have systematically built up the number of women to study, and it's 35% across the university today. 6% of our students come from Asia Pacific. The second largest group is from Sub-Saharan Africa, about 26%, and the 3 other pies are either Europe and North America, so Latin America and the Caribbean, and it is the Middle East and North Africa. And obviously I spent a lot of effort in the last 6 months working on South America to send more students to us. The number of women who come to be involved in maritime depends on role models. So when I became president, we had no women professor. We today have 4. So we are working on that. And then the next question is, what happens to a student when they graduate? Well, I mean, in the later part of their career, many things happen to them. The gentlemen in the lowest right corner are 2 ministers from Turkey. The Minister of Transport and Communication, Mr. Yildirim, who serves on my executive board and board of governors. Also Dr. Yilmaz, who works in port management. The commandant of the Philippine Coast Guard, Admiral Isorena, was one of your classmate. And in fact, the 2 previous, and Admiral Levi, were also our graduates. So, if you come to all of you in here, if you come to WMU to study, you will become a minister or a commandant of the Coast Guard in the future. or maybe a chairman of a shipping. You know, we have to date 3,477 graduates, and we try to keep track of them through our database. And many of them are doing very well. They represent 164 countries. So it's probably one of maybe the most international university in the world in this site, because here are some of the data. There are 2 numbers that I would like to emphasize. The first number is that the average age of the student at WMU is 34 years. It's a little bit different. We get very mature students, students who have got a bachelor's degree and usually have worked for 5 or so years in the maritime field. It's very different than most other universities. This doesn't mean that we require that, but this is what the current profile of the university is. The second number I would like to do is the student-faculty ratio. Our ratio is 6 to 1. The typical in the United States, the number is 20 to 1. Harvard University is 8 to 1. WMU is 6 to 1, meaning one professor can interact with these students more effectively and we give more time to individual students. This is a very important number. But in addition to that, we bring in about 100, sometimes up to 150 guest professors, guest lecturers, guest visiting persons every year. And we do that to give the students exposure to different thoughts and to persons from around the world. Maybe we don't do that as well as we should, but I think it's a resource for the students. The students who come to WMU get a total global exposure. We emphasize that. The other number, the other thing to consider, I guess, is unfortunately the education is not free. So in terms of organized students, we have to talk to your Minister of Transport and Communications. We have to work with Director Generals of the Maritime to get them to sponsor a few students every year. We get about 55 fellowships a year, and Thai students are the recipients of many of those fellowships. But we need to get a few local scholarships too. And the reason for my travel, first in the Philippines, here in Thailand, next to Malaysia, and after that to India, is indeed to meet with the officials, to tell about the university, and try to find an interest within the maritime or transport sectors for countries locally to sponsor some of their own nationals to come to WMU. And when people come, we take care of them. I did not realize that I would become a hotel manager when I became the president. But I managed this hotel, which we call it's in fact probably a 2-star hotel with a private bathroom, and each student has their own room. And we have 216 rooms, and of course, to make the whole thing work, we need to have very high occupancy, and we do now. It's a UN facility, so it has the security too, which is very good. So why would somebody want to come and study in Sweden? Come to a cold country such as Sweden when you live in a lovely tropical country? Well, there are three good reasons professionally. The first one is that the alliances. We belong to the IMO. We are completely integrated with the maritime administrations of the world. And the students who come, they meet their colleagues of their same year from across the world. It's a total network of maritime professionals. The second reason is the excellence. Our professors are hired in international competition. When we hire a professor, we advertise in The Economist, in Higher Times in England, and the Chronicle of Higher Education in the United States. We are on the UN list servers, and we go to Fair Trade and a number of Lloyd's List and a number of these trade journals to make sure that everybody finds out about it. So every position is transparently hired in competition and the best. And our faculty cover 19 different countries. Nobody from Thailand, but yet. But we're waiting. What is saying and what is true. Through this excellence and through this multinational aspect, we are training the future leaders of the maritime industry, both on the public and the private sector. And then the third issue, which is more student-oriented. 3 weeks during the year is a field study trip. And each specialization travels on its own with a professor in the specialization, typically to anywhere from 3 to 7 locations around the world. Singapore, Istanbul, Malta, Athens, Rotterdam, Oslo, Helsinki, Halifax, Valparaiso, Chile, and other places. And it varies every year. And you can talk to those students, those graduates that are in the room, find out where they were when they were on the field study trip. And it's very exciting. Last year I traveled with the students to Turkey and Istanbul, and for me it was a fantastic experience as hosts of the ministry. Other exciting things is that the building in which we are is too small for us. It's ready to be torn down in a few years, and the city of Malmö has offered us this new complex. The building to the right exists. It's a historical building in Malmö from 1910. It used to be the harbor. The building to the left does not yet exist, but the building is just underway. It was designed by the son of the man who designed the Sydney Opera House in Australia. And we see the Opera House on this little canal in Malmö. And it will give us about 6,000 square meters of space, more than 2.5 times what we have today. And sometime in 2014, we will be ready to move into this new building, and it's going to be very exciting. We're also doing more outreach than before, going to local schools, talking to the public. We want to install the Signs on the Sphere, which is a way of demonstrating global change in different ways, including transport on the globe. And for those who have been to Malmö, or those who haven't been to Malmö, the building up to the right is the landmark of Malmö. It is Europe's highest apartment building at 196 meters. It's called the Turning Torso, and it was designed by a world-famous architect called Santiago Cavalcanti. I can't even say it right now. Calatrava, sorry, Calatrava. Santiago Calatrava, a Spanish architect. And it's one of his, he boasts about it, which we're very happy about. We opened a WMU Shanghai. Our Vice President International, Dr. Shu Mao, spends 50% of his time here, and we have a staff of 2 PhD students and an office person. And we use this to manage our programs in China and to recruit and to find research opportunities. We also run international conferences. We are in April this year. We have a conference on ship recycling. We expect each conference to have at least 300 participants, sometimes well over 400. We did one on piracy at sea in 2011 with 410, and prior to that one on oil spill risk management. So this is very much part of the things that we do. As I said, we do one marine insurance course, and when the cruise ship industry tells us that we don't need to send students for WMU because we are risk-free. Well, then happens Costa Concordia, and that's good proof that the cruise industry is not risk-free at all. And in fact, from my perspective, focusing on really talking to the cruise ship industry is an important part in the next year to get them to recognize that they need more professionals. We offer a large number of what we call professional development courses. These are week-long courses in specific topics. Some of them offered in Malmö, and some of them we take on the road. We have taught them in Vladivostok, in Yangon, in Muscat, and so on, in many different places. And here you will see about 16, I think,